wanted to make a pretty simple video slash rant, basically just explaining why I left Christianity and most likely why I'll never ever go back to it. So I'm just gonna jump right into it. So one of the main reasons why I left Christianity was, mm, let's start with Jesus didn't even write a word, right? A lot of the scripture or the things that either Paul wrote or other people wrote were written 40 to 70 years after his death. So when I initially started to study and ask questions, I was curious. Like, one question I specifically asked was, well, how do we know Jesus said this? And a simple term would be, well, Jesus, some scribe or somebody like that was standing next to him as he said these things. No, that's not what happened. So truth is that I don't think we really even know, did he say this stuff or not, right? Another reason is too many contradictions, right? There's 600 contradictions in the Holy Bible. A lot of them are debatable, others are obvious, right? For example, Matthew 28:1, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, or John 21, just Mary Magdalene, right? Or did Judas die by hanging or falling or bursting open, right? In Matthew 27 to 5, right, he hung himself. But in Acts 1:18, fell, burst open, guts everywhere. You see what I'm saying? So a lot of times you just, in general, don't know a lot of different strange contradictions in the Bible. Another reason is that there's a lot of other gods in the Bible, right? For example, in Leviticus, Moloch, or in Second Kings, you have Beelzebub or Beelzebub. A lot of people now think this is a version of Satan, but us occultists will know that Beelzebub is an independent being himself, depending on your worldview, whether you're believe they're just archetypes or external beings. But we're not going to get into that right now. We all know that God says that he is a jealous God, or in Exodus 23, him saying, thou shalt not put no other gods before me. And I had a hard time growing up as a teenager having somebody explain to me how there's God with a capital G, and then there's also gods, and they would tell me that they're just false idols. But it just didn't add up to me. It just didn't add up to me. All right, so another reason is that abortion, right? I'm not gonna get into political here because abortion is a very sensitive topic for both religious people and women especially, right? It doesn't affect me directly, so I don't feel any type of way. However, I do feel a little bit irritated that Christians tend to push this narrative that abortion is wrong, with one of the 10 Commandments being murder, right? So this is kind of like science versus logic, right? Or scripture, right? So we also run into a problem where, for example, in Numbers 5:11 through 31, Moses instructs a suspecting husband on how to test his wife on if she was loyal or not. And if she takes this bitter drink, then if she was loyal, then she would be okay. If she was not loyal, then her abdomen would swell. You guys can go look at this verse yourself. This type of stuff was stood out to me when I was actually reading my Bible, right? Another reason is children being harmed constantly in the Bible. Now, naturally, the thing is with me is that, like, naturally, when I was growing up in church, now keep in mind, let me just put this out. I have no religious trauma. I actually loved church growing up. My church was amazing. I did Bible camp. I did missionary work. I grew up in the South, so I had a lot of things that I didn't really have a lot of reasons to hate Christianity at all. Now, I am a former Satanist, right? I have a video as to why I left Satanism. That was a long ride. You can go watch that if you want to. For example, in 2 Kings 2:23 through 24, God sends bears to maul 42 kids for mocking someone's bald head. It's weird. Exodus 11 kills the firstborn child of Egyptians. Hosea 13 through 16, pregnant woman ripped open. It's just something that I just can't vibe with. Again, I could get into discussions later as to details and blah, 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 blah. But as of right now, I'm just trying to get this information out there. Another reason is kind of an obvious one, is the Catholic Church, right? The Catholic Church and the baptisms and stuff like that. I couldn't really rock with it. You know, something that always kind of bothered me was we have a problem where we're appointing priests. I grew up Protestant, but now I live in a country where it's predominantly Catholic, so I have a lot of Catholic friends and Catholic inside now, right? Catholic sex abuse, I don't know why God would allow these things. I'm not sure. You know, you have free will, but you can't really argue for free will when you are enabling someone else to take away the free will of somebody else. They don't have the free will. The child doesn't have the free will to grow up with trauma and have other sexual issues later and have to do the shadow work later. But then we're gonna blame the human being for becoming a certain type of way when the person that was essentially appointed by God abused the person. It doesn't make much sense, and it just doesn't add up to me, right? Another reason is revelation. Now, I mentioned this when I was in my Why I Left Satanism video. I was the type of kid when I was growing up that I was actually reading my Bible, but I was also a very impatient child. That's why in school I just wasn't really vibing with school a lot, right? But I skipped to the end, you know, because obviously at 9, 11 years old, you don't know that the Bible, I didn't know how the Bible was structured, that it's not something you just read front to back, right? So I just skipped to the end. And it wasn't fun. You know, the plagues, the horsemen, the dragons, the one things and this thing, you know, the story of Revelation is very, very brutal and traumatizing. You know, I had a friend that his mother took him to some camp where they basically took children and showed them around and showed them like broken planes. They had basically set up this whole facility to show children the act of Revelation. And that's just something that I just can't rock with, is this way of getting people to believe something through fear. I don't think that if you're an intelligent, omnipotent, omnibenevolent God, I don't see a reason why you would need to rule through fear, right? Another reason is knowledge, right? I have a big issue with God being against knowledge. It's pretty obvious when you read the Bible, or if you read things like books that were removed from the Bible, you know, Adam and Eve eating from the tree of knowledge, or Enoch, where a bunch of demons, or at the time they were angels, watchers, teaching people knowledge, right? These things are what angered God, which in my opinion shouldn't have angered God. It should have been embraced that mankind was trying to learn knowledge, whether it was through this way or through that way. The last reason is that I feel like a lot of people weaponize religion, right? There's a lot of good Christians that follow their religion, but not in a good way. I have so many people where, like for example, my auntie, I saw her a Facebook post where she was sitting on the side of the road with a sign that says, I think it said free prayer or something like this, right? That's good, right? I don't have an issue with this. Someone on the side of the road could say, oh, I don't screw this, fuck this, I don't want to do all that, right? Or they could be like, I need a prayer. This woman is just doing something nice for people, right? Just because she believes in prayer, right? And in that aspect, through the collective unconscious, it'll work, right? But if you have a sign that says, if you're gay, you're going to hell. If you're doing this and doing that, you're going to hell, right? Invoking and trying to push fear on the people who don't even want it in the first place, right? These are reasons, also reasons why I don't like religion, especially as an institution, which is another reason why I left Satanism as a whole, so on and so on and so on, right? My last reason is enslavement and the condoning of, or the lack, we'll just say at least the lack of condemning slavery in the Bible. Now, a lot of people say this is a lot of nuances here, but to me it's quite obvious that the Bible, at the very minimum, a lot of people will say, oh, it condones it. That's fine. You can say that it condones it. That's personally what I think. However, we can't argue that it doesn't condemn it, right? That's just the one thing. All right, so I'm gonna end the video there. I just wanted to give a quick thing explaining why I left Christianity, where I am now. As of right now, I am nothing. I guess you can call me a witch, an occultist, whatever you want to call me. I don't put labels on myself. I simply do what works and what's consistent. I don't pay attention to what contradicts. Y'all need to do the same. Is pay attention to what is consistent, not what contradicts, right? That's my last thing I want to say in this video. Thank y'all for showing. Thank y'all for tuning in.